When bagging items like this, I'd rather see that the items, instead of being bagged in a line like this, where they'd be flat and could potentially get damaged and crushed, we'd rather see them more like a box. And that'll help Todd, or whoever's boxing, box them neater. Where was our smaller bag? So, this could technically be bagged like this. Takes a little bit of time to make sure those fit in there, and this would work. But you'll notice that these cookies could get crushed. So,
and also when boxing, this is a lot larger of a size to box in, and you require like a medium box rather than be able to box it in a small if necessary.
We'd rather go a size up on the bag, and the cost difference in the bags is very minimal, and I think the time that it takes to get it in that smaller bag is more, this way will be more cost effective, and it's so much quicker to get all three of those in one shot, pull that down, fold it over. And it's fine that there's extra plastic on the ends. It's not too much extra, but it's much quicker and much easier to get that in that bigger bag.
Alright, so sometimes when you're boxing something, there might be a time where it's a little tight. Give me another crayon in there. And so if you stick it in the middle, then you can slide in, and that's a tight squeeze there. It doesn't always have to be that tight, but just being able to, rather than trying to go on the side with it and getting your last one in here, because then it can tear a hole in the bag there, just sliding it in the middle, and then that's a lot quicker as well.
And if for some reason you're bagging something like this, where this is 5 right here and you need to put a 6, even though this is not a perfectly boxed square thing, this is squared off enough where this will be very nice for someone to box that.
Right now we box a lot of crayons because it's back to school, but there'll be other things that we box down the road that are bagged down the road. So we can stick this in, and yes, it squeezes in, doing our little center thing there. I'm fighting it a little bit, wasting time, and eventually I can get it in this way. However, you can also do this way, and that also works. However, the issue is when I go to box this up, now I have not a non-uniform surface, and I found that particularly with these, that I can get about 15 more crayons in one box if I do it like Chad is doing here.
So let's just get a bigger bag, and for time's sake, efficiency's sake, 3 in the bag. I got that done way quicker than trying to mess with that in a smaller bag. So even though it fits in a smaller bag and it can be done, you're better off getting it in that bigger bag. And again, this doesn't need to look like a present or neat. It's okay that there's extra bag on the side there, and this will be easier for someone to box that up. So,
but once again, this is totally fine to wrap, because you know what? When your kid gets this, all they're doing is they're just gonna rip it open anyways, and these aren't reusable, so it doesn't matter. So we're okay just going with the bigger bag, a little bit sloppier. Doesn't need to be neat, no matter how much of a perfectionist you may be. It's totally fine.
Alright, anytime you're bagging something that is a liquid, Amazon requires that the item be placed in a poly bag, even if it's a single unit, if it doesn't have 2 seals. So these are 2 examples here. This item would need to be in a poly bag because this is only 1 seal, and then underneath here there's not another cover on that. So this would need to go in a poly bag. However, this liquid has the bottle cap, plus it has this extra plastic on top. This would not need to go in a poly bag. All right, another time that you would need to poly bag single units would be something like a kitchen item or a cloth or a piece of clothing, anything that has something exposed like that. We would just go ahead and poly bag that. Something like this could just go in a bag as is. It could be folded and placed in, and this could be just dropped into a poly bag and be good to go.
And the other thing too is, one thing to remember is with toys, as long as the hole there's a hole in the like the plastic of the toy, if it exceeds the size of a quarter, then it probably should be poly bagged. A lot of toys we'll get down at Christmas will be, you know, a truck completely exposed, zip tied into a box. That will have to be poly bagged.
Okay, the next thing we want to go over is when bagging something, multiples of something, there's no need to have the items all facing the same direction. If for some reason they're already laid out perfectly and you put them in that way, that's fine, but it's not required. So this could go in obviously like this. And be good. And I even have vanilla, 2 chocolates, vanilla. That's fine. The other thing is, if for whatever reason you had a chocolate facing this way, upside down, and this one's facing, the back is facing out, that's also fine as well. So when we're bagging items, the direction of how the products lay in the bag does not matter in multi-packs or whatever. These items do not need to all be laying the same way in the bag on top of each other. They can face like this. The UPC can face out. This could be right side up, upside down. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of people like to have it look a certain way, but really, to me, I'd rather it be, you be quicker about getting it in the bag than having it look neat. I'd rather it be more efficient and making sure we're getting things in the bag quickly and getting more products out the door. So something like this. You can see that some of these are upside down. You can see that this one is facing, the barcode's facing out. The front of the product isn't facing out. This one, same thing, and this one's even upside down, but that's totally fine. It was quick for me to put all 4 of those in that way without having to sort them around. Your next one can look completely different. You have the front of the package facing out. In fact, all 4 of them could all be facing the same way, but you can see this one and this one, they look different. That's fine. That's not a big deal. I would rather you just make sure you're getting the bag items in the bag quicker.
Another example of that would be these cake mixes we have a lot of. Just throwing in the icing like that. It doesn't matter. This doesn't have to be facing out. You know, it can be turned like that, whatever. We know these products very easily, so we don't need to see that.
Okay, so next we're gonna work on an item here that we're gonna bag all of these items the exact same way. All of these pens are gonna be packs of 2. And something like this is something very easy to just get in a quick routine, be efficient, get these in a bag pretty quickly. Once you figure out the bag size that you're gonna use, you might need to test different sizes to see what works well for you. So we're gonna just check this, see if it works, and once I have that bag, I can go ahead and grab the whole stack and just go through and blaze through all these. So fold that down. Again, that doesn't need to be perfectly squared off, but it does fit in there. It's kind of at an angle in the bag. That's completely fine. So we know that we're good to go with that. So I'll go ahead and grab this whole stack here. And let's get going. So just 2. Sometimes they might face back to back. That's fine. Peel, and we're good. Just throw them off to the side. And you can see then that we can get through these pretty quickly.
And a lot of times when you're bagging this, you'll have trash with all these, you know, strips here, whatever. Just a lot of times you just leave them on a pile. After you finish a bunch, then you can throw them in the trash, but don't feel like you have to have a neat, tidy table either.
But you can see that we can get one unit here bagged in about 5 to 10 seconds. And it's nice when you're doing something that you're doing a lot of. You're just getting a nice little routine, a little groove here. And you can just fly through these pretty quick.
And a lot of times, we talk a lot about efficiency in our business, just because the less time we're spending on prepping means more time that we can spend on boxing or shipping stuff out, or even having people go shop and they're spending less time prepping, because ultimately that means we're getting more product, which means we're getting more product sent in to Amazon to sell, so we can buy more product. And whatever stage that we can speed up, we try to do that as much as we can.
So that box is done. I got 12 units done there. It maybe took me a little over a minute to just knock out 12 items. Something like that doesn't need to take a long time. Throw those things in there, and then we got our labels. So we'll get rid of this. With labeling something like this, I got my labels all here ready to go. And the labels, same thing. They don't need to look perfect. They don't need to all be on the same way. You'll see that I'm just throwing these on, and they're not even facing the same direction on each product. They're not on the same spot of the bag. Sometimes they're up and down. Sometimes they're side to side. And you can see there different directions, and that's completely fine. Amazon's gonna pick all of these up when they get them out of the boxes. When it gets to the fulfillment center and scan each one, they can turn it around the way they need to scan this.
The biggest thing with these is just making sure your label is not bent around the product. Like if you put one on, that it's bent like this, because they need to be able to see that entire barcode. So keeping it completely flat, you can see here he turned them two totally different directions, but it's clearly visible.
And then another thing is too, sometimes, so these are actually going to get bagged the same way. These are also the same pen. They're also going to be packs of 2. But what happens is there's listings on Amazon that they're exactly the same product, but they're 2 different listings, and we'll sell on both of them. So you'll see in this example, so the bags that are already completed, they have a code that ends in WPF. Well, I also have these black pens at packs of 2 that end in XZN. So when you're bagging these items, they're gonna look exactly the same way. Go ahead and bag them the same way, label them the same way, but just keep them separate from the first set you did. It'll make it easy when you put them on the shelf or when you're ready to box, that they're separated out. So let's do the same thing here quick. Really quick. 2 items, throw it in, pull it off, fold it down. And the other thing too is we'll bag everything first. I'll bag all these, do the same motion over and over again, rather than bagging them, taking a label off to the side, onto the next bag. Bagging it, setting it down, getting a label off to the side. No need to do it that way. It's just going to take you longer. Go ahead and just grab all your items, bag them up, complete all of those, and then at the end you can come back, label everything, all one motion. It'll make your life a lot easier and just make things a little bit quicker.
The other thing you can see too is he's grabbing them directly out of the box or whatever, your bag or whatever. He's not staging and setting 2s out. You know, some people might think that that's helpful for them, but it really just slows you down sometimes. I'd say the only time that this is beneficial is when you have, potentially when you have like, if there were 3 different color pens and you want to have a pile of each and you can grab them, but
yeah, even
still, just grabbing them from, you know, if there were a red, a black, and a blue, you just grab a red, grab a black, and grab a blue. is much easier than trying to set out individual units.
So we got 2 more here. So again, this was a box or a case of 24 total, so we're doing 12 2-packs. Again, this took us about maybe a minute to get through 12 units. Throw them in there, fold that down, boom, those are ready to roll. We got our labels. Again, these do not need to be in the same spot on the bag. They can be turned different ways. You can just fly through these. Sometimes I'll pull a couple off. And the last one's over here. And boom, those are good to go.
Alright, so now I'm gonna just show you something else here. That, like, once I find my box, I just grab them directly out of the container there. So you can see it fits that way. I don't know if it fits this way. Like this way, I think you could do it this way. But once again, we'd rather have not do that because it's not very easy. Stuff can get crushed a lot easier. So I just throw it in here. It's a lot quicker. Now I know what size bag I'm gonna grab, so grab a pile.
And the thing with these, most of these are going to get placed in the bag the same way because you're grabbing them off a stack that are already organized in the same direction. But if for some reason you do have something that one of them's turned around the wrong opposite way or it's upside down, there's no need to turn it around. Just go ahead and still throw it in there.
And you can see I'm not worried about them being this being super tight or whatever. Like, there is some flex in there, that's okay. It's all about getting it done efficiently.
The nice thing about just going ahead and grabbing your stack of bags ahead of time, you just have everything ready there. You can just keep rolling. You don't need to count out the bags. You know, say you know you have 20 of these 2-packs that you're going to do. Don't worry about counting out the bags ahead of time. Just grab that stack. It'll allow you to just roll through what you need, and then if you have leftover bags sitting here, you can just throw them back in your cart. And another reason we want to show you, again, why we want to show you us bagging about 20 of the same item is, you know, just to see that, you know, this doesn't have to take a long time. It can be, it's, again, we're just trying to be efficient, and it's not because we're trying to be speed racers and trying to set records, but we want to get things done efficiently, and you know, obviously the more products that we're able to get out, the more the business can succeed, and everyone can do well. The other thing is too, when you're taking the time to move the product around so it's all facing the same way, or you know, it looks a certain way. It obviously looks neat and looks nice, but obviously that takes extra time. And you might think, oh, well, that's only an extra, you know, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. But when you're doing that for every single product, that can really add up pretty quick. And in that time that it took you that extra 5 seconds to move, you know, to move the products around, you might have been able to actually just bag an extra unit. So
the other thing you'll notice is Chad and I are doing this whole video standing up. We've just found that just helps you become a little bit quicker too. And it actually is a little less painful on your shoulders and neck and back because you're not hunched over. So you can do some things if you're doing it at your house. We have some table risers. You throw some wood underneath your table to make it a little higher so you're not like leaning over so far, but it definitely is a lot easier to maneuver when you're standing up, and just the time of sitting it down and then standing up to move your inventory to a different location and then sitting back down, all that stuff just takes time.
Or maybe you need to grab different bags and you don't have the cart right next to you, you're just popping up and down. It all adds up. And again, there are times I understand you might need to just sit and work on something for a while. That happens, but for the most part, we found that it definitely is going to be just helpful for yourself, even to just stand up the whole time and be able to be quick with it. And honestly, I feel like like Todd said, it's less painful.
So now I'm done there, got my labels, and I'm just slapping them on. What I like to generally do is, do a bunch at a time, then move the pieces so I can get to the other ones below it.
And the other thing too is, sometimes he might label them on the top, but it's fine if you also label them on the side of the box or side of the package too.
Here's an example of where I went a little fast on my label and it got folded over. So in that scenario, just trash it. Don't try to get a new one or save it, and we'll just print out a new one. It's not a big deal there. It happens.
So yeah, you can see that was pretty quick with him labeling that. Doesn't need to take a long time. Again, they all don't need to be labeled in the same spot. Obviously, this one's labeled, the back is facing out. This one's labeled a completely different way. The front's facing out, and that's completely fine. He was just able to get through that very quickly, and we're able to move on to the next item. Yeah, so it looks like Todd just did 29 items, and that maybe took 5 minutes.
5 minutes if that.
Maybe a couple more.
And I just printed out more labels, so you can see that even that time to do that was way faster than trying to save that one label that got stuck together.
And we don't have a certain amount of items that we're looking to see someone, like, oh, you have to get this many items done in a minute. But I feel like something like this, where you're doing the same thing over and over again, you should be able to get probably 3 or 4 at least in a minute.
Yeah, 10 to 20 seconds an item is definitely well within reason.
Yep.
But for something like that, if that would have taken me 30 seconds instead of 10 seconds, that's 20 seconds right there. And you add that up over these 30 items, that's 600 seconds. So there's, 10 minutes of extra time that could have been doing something else, whether that's boxing up or shipping stuff out or getting on to the next thing, to prep that too. So it's all about efficiency.
All right, so when we're labeling single unit items, the label does not need to cover up the UPC. It can just go anywhere on the product. Amazon did used to require that you would cover up the barcode that's on the product, but that is something we don't need to worry about, and I would prefer that you actually don't take the time to look for the UPC to cover it up. You can just put the label anywhere on the product. We'll start here with the sidewalk chalk. Basically all I'm doing, throwing those on the top. They could be on the front if you happen to have them laying out like this. And you want to put it there, that isn't an issue. But as far as just being quick, you can just throw these like on the top like that, and you're good to go. Amazon will know which one to scan there. And then something like this, again, you can't even cover this up correctly anyway because it wouldn't fit on the end of the box. So something like this, I'm just gonna throw it right on the front. Those are good to go. All right, same thing for these. Doesn't need to be on a barcode, doesn't need to be in a certain direction. You can just go through all of these, place them on the front, the back. It can be across, up and down, doesn't matter. They're all good to go. Anything that's glass is definitely going to need to be bubble wrapped. And then what we'll do as well is once it's bubble wrapped, we're going to go ahead and throw it in a poly bag. And that way, you know, if the bubble wrap doesn't keep this from breaking, it's still in a bag then. And if it's liquid or something that's going to be a huge mess, it's going to stay contained in that bag. So what we'll do here is normally I'm laying these products out pretty much right in the center here. And I'm just going to go ahead and allow the product to almost just roll here on the bubble wrap. And so you can see here, at this point, I basically have one layer of bubble wrap around the product. I normally look to go for about two, minimum of two, and that's normally the kind of what we keep it at. But I'm just gonna let this roll, slide that out of the way, roll around here. See the second layer of bubble wrap there. And these are perforated basically at about every 12 inches. I just kind of pull. And as you start pulling that tension, it normally will rip about where the perforation is, but not always. It doesn't matter if it's a clean cut or not. So you can see now that there's two layers of bubble wrap around this whole thing. And rather than taping this, you can just go ahead and place this directly into the bag. So we'll try this bag here, and if we need one bigger, we'll go for it. So I'll open that up a bit, and I'm just grabbing this from the end, kind of squishing in. It automatically just is going to squish the end of the bubble wrap to the bottom of the jars there. And then I'll just feed the top end into that bag. And of course that's not working. We'll open that up again. And something like that, maybe you do need a bigger bag. So see, that's a little tight there. I'm getting it in. We could just go ahead and get a bigger bag. I'm getting it in at this point, but maybe on the next one I'll go ahead and get a bigger bag, since that was kind of struggling there. But you can see then too that this bubble wrap at the top, as I fold this down, it's going to give that extra cushion on the top. Pull that off, fold that down, and then that's good to go. It's not going to be, it doesn't need to be perfect, but that's going to hold up enough if that would happen to drop off a shelf. All right, so, and then here's one example where we have just, you know, one jar. We'll just go ahead and roll that. I can see the perforation's actually right there. Pull that off, and that's good like that. Just gonna hold that as is. Grab a bag, throw the end in there, and fold that down, and that's good to go. We'll do another one here. Say we have 3 jars, pretty much doing the same thing with the 2. Got those 3 in a line. We're just gonna let this kind of roll. Not about two layers there covered on the perforation. Kind of fold that over. We'll get a bigger bag right away. Let's just get a 12 by 17. Grab the end, kind of feed that end in there. You can see I'm just kind of wiggling the bag, and it just kind of feeds right in. And when we fold this down, this bubble wrap will fold over the bottom of the jars there, and then that's good to go.
And obviously, bubble wrapping is going to take a longer than just 2 lifesavers or something like that. So just be patient with that a little bit, but that's an easy way to do it without having to tape everything all up.